It's time for Chess Chest!
What?
No, 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 no.
Chest chest.
Welcome to another Down the Rabbit Hole video, and welcome to another episode of Chess Chest. This is going to be, I hope, a quick one, and one that I had actually intended to do way down the road, but it's connected to the video response I did for Swifto a few weeks back. One of his questions was, if you could bring somebody back from history to show them video games, who would it be and why? I had mentioned one of my answers was Roger Ebert, who has just recently departed. And my main thrust of that answer was because he was famous about 10 years ago for saying that video games can never be art, and I'd like to show him video games to say, hey, yes they are. And I was, why are we doing this as a chess chest video? There's a bizarre leap that I'm going to make here, and I had thought I was all on my own. Turns out I wasn't, but we'll get to that one. So, okay, to very quickly summarize, for those who don't know the whole story, it was 2010, or just before 2010. Ebert had done a discussion or a review, or somehow had brought up the subject of the Doom movie with The Rock and Carl Urban and those guys. And at the end of the film, Carl Urban, he picks up a gun, he's going to take on the bad guys, and we go into his point of view, and the gun is up, and you're moving through, and monsters are jumping out, just like in Doom. And Roger Ebert had made some comment about how, at that point, it stopped being a movie, and it was basically just the video game. And, you know, defenders came along and said, well, Doom is exactly that. I mean, that's what you kind of pay for when you go to a Doom movie. Then the details are all online, and I'm not going to waste time on this, just going into the whole history of it. But a lady who was, I think, a game developer had done a TED Talk talking kind of to Roger Ebert about video games are an art form. They're an expression of creativity. I mean, just look at some of these games of the time that this talk happened. And that inspired Roger Ebert to definitively say, video games can never be an art form. Why am I bringing this up as a chess video? I had thought, in a way, I kind of agree with Roger Ebert. For me, because I've watched a lot of films and television and other forms of expressive media like that, I can kind of see where he's coming from. I mean, not so much in the Doom angle, but, you know, people will bring up a lot of typical examples like BioShock and Last of Us and Fallout and, even more fluffy, lighter fare, any of the Mario games or Zelda or even Flower. You know, there are some very great creative works that are very imaginative and really take a lot of thought and artistry to bring to life. That makes them an art form, surely. I don't agree, or my answer to that is a bit gray, and I was going to bring up chess until I discovered I'm not alone in my exact thing I'm about to bring up. But let me counter the argument as the best that I can. I have enjoyed some really great video games, but in all the years I've always that I've played any of them, I will say that I could count one game ever that moved me to tears. I'll do a video about it someday. It wasn't Last of Us. It wasn't anything you would expect. Only one video game has ever really moved me. I mean, there have been some games that made me feel pretty down in the dumps and affected me emotionally in that way, but not anything that I get like from a typical movie. And as people who know me will attest, I am I can easily well up in a movie if it's done right. I mean, you just got to line up the plot points right, you hit the music the right way. Yeah, I'll get all misty-eyed. I cry in Wreck-It Ralph, the first one. So, that gives you an idea. I'm well in touch with my emotional side, let's just say. So, for me, you'd think the amount of games I've played, and some have been very emotional, surely I must have been moved to tears or joy or whatever. I mean, joy is... That's a dicey one because, yeah, you can have a lot of fun in a video games, but have any of them really made me laugh other than things that are specifically comedy video games like the, I don't know, Monkey Island Adventures, that kind of thing? Anyway, my point is, I kind of agree with Roger Ebert to some extent that when you are coming from film or television, where you have something impacting characters, and as the audience, you're swept along with what happens to them. The examples people bring up for video games don't really do that for me emotionally, and there are some people who are very impacted by them, and that's great, and that's a good thing. And those are the people who are defending video games to Roger Ebert back in the day, saying, hey, no, here's a list, and you don't know what you're talking about. And to his credit, Roger Ebert did actually post an apology months later. He had an article, okay, kids, you can play on my lawn. It was wrong for me to say that video games will never be an art form. Nobody really knows what creative avenues could eventually be escalated to an art form, but nobody who's a gamer alive today is going to see that happen. Like, that was sort of his half apology to the gaming community. And he did say, look, I haven't played a lot of video games. And you know what? I'm not going to go into it. I'm going to put links down below to kind of the main articles on all of this stuff. My counter was going to be, or my question that I'm going to pose in this video, because it's directly related to chess, is the notion that a thing that is a game or an interaction between two people, can't that be art? Something is... with the game of chess, I was hoping to do this later on in my videos, where I was going to show examples of brilliant works where chess players have done amazing things and done incredible strategies, and their nuance of play and interaction was just the stuff of art. And I mean, in a way, it's a little bit like dance. Like these two armies, as they're posing and redirecting and fighting and challenging each other and positioning for space, couldn't that be argued that's a little bit like two people dancing? Or I guess you could, I mean, a more accurate analogy is a dance-off. But I don't know if I want to use that as my argument for it to be an art form. But my question was going to be, if you consider chess an art form, no, reverse that. Chess is a game, just like Pong. You can use your Bioshocks and your Last of Us and all that kind of stuff. Let's peel back the layers. Let's go back really basic. Let's do Asteroids, Pac-Man, Pong, etc. They're a little bit harder to argue the artistic endeavor of. You know, yeah, you can look at Uncharted or Gears of War, and you can see all the level of detail of the characters and the worlds that they inhabit. That's fine, sure, but let's go way earlier than that stuff to the really basic rudimentary bleeps and bloops era. That's a little bit harder to say it's an art form. And I would argue with chess, you could take that one step further back. I mean, chess is a game just like Pong and Asteroids and the rest of them, and it's played by two people. And I have been watching or following various games in history where the movement, the brilliance of some of the players, to me, is like an art form. It's like I'm watching ballet dancers moving together in harmony or against each other. But interestingly, in the article that, the original posting that Roger Ebert said, his big quote about it, you know, it's never going to be considered an art form, he even quoted Bobby Fischer as one of the people who said, no, I never think of my particular medium as an art form. So I was going to pose the question out there. If you consider video games an art form, and there's a lot of argument that can be made for that, I ask you, strip away the layers of the most advanced and most pretty video games and take it back to the really rudimentary stuff, where it's very basic Atari level what's going on screen. Is that also a work of art? And if so, why not a game of chess? is that not an art form as well? Because I do consider games of chess that are really well done symphonic, and they transcend what the basics of the gameplay are. It's no longer just mechanics of this guy moves here and that guy takes that piece. No, it has elevated up to a level of being what I consider to be artistic. So I ask you, if you defend the idea that video games are an art form, what about a game of chess? Can that be an art form as well? Do you consider that art? Because I do. Now, having said all of that, in my research of this entire thing, I ran across an excellent video, and I'm going to do a little insert down below of it, but I'm going to be careful that I don't show too much because I don't want to get any kind of trouble for showing somebody else's work. This is Brian Moriarty of the Worcester Polytechnic Institute giving a talk at the Game Developers Conference 5 years ago. I'm going to put a link to the full video down below. It's about an hour long, but wow, does he really go into this discussion at length. He's actually very much saying, Roger Ebert was right. It's really not an art form. Here I am, a game developer at a conference full of gaming enthusiasts and professionals. And even I'm saying it's not art. And ironically, it is a painting of chess players that is completely central to his argument. And it's a really fascinating watch. I ask that you actually take some time, take an hour out of your time, watch this video, because it really goes in depth to the concept of how art has evolved over the centuries, what it used to be for your average person, and even higher up rich people back in like 1,000 years ago, and then how it's kind of infiltrated the modern day life in a way that is. He even brings up the concept of kitsch, and what is that? And he even quotes Roger Ebert in this whole discussion about video games are not art. What about movies? I've seen some pretty crappy movies. Even Roger Ebert has said, no, a lot of movies are not art either, which surprises me. I would have thought it's either it's always or it's never. You can't have. It's a very nuanced answer, and I can't do it justice. Certainly not within the time frame of this video. I'm going to recommend you check out the video down below, An Apology for Roger Ebert. And especially the chess angle. I was really surprised. Here I am thinking to myself, yes, chess is an artistic game, movement and direction and ballet, and they're all very sophisticated and all that kind of stuff. But Bobby Fischer says, no, it's not. And neither do the people in this entire discussion. There's a very lengthy diatribe about what you consider art. What is it? What does it mean? I'm not going to get into it. It would take too long. So, I'm going to recommend you check out the video below. I'm going to wrap this one up because this is sort of a quick one. And again, I had thought of doing this ages later when I've actually shown some of these incredible games of chess where you see the sheer brilliance of the two players in hand. But since I had just brought it up for the Swifto thing, I thought, okay, I'll do it again here for a standalone chess episode. Gonna stop there, so until next time, we'll see you down the rabbit hole.